Delegate Pippi, this is Robin.
Hey, Robin.
Hey, we're having a hard time finding the live link. Do you know if it's been activated yet?
Waiting for our administrator here to activate it.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
Yeah.
It should be live right now.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. To I guess the final day in January, our third delegation meeting. We kind of have a busy schedule today. So let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And, we'll get the flag up here. All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, the Republic, which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
All right, so we're honored to be joined by U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen, who is going to, for a few minutes, provide us with a federal update. As all of you know, we have federal partners in the state, and the federal government and the state government, in many cases, work hand in hand. So we appreciate having the senator here. And Senator Van Hollen, go ahead, sir.
Well, Delegate Pippi, thank you. Thanks for your leadership as chair of the Frederick County delegation. It's great to be here with all of you. I'm always impressed with the amount of work you all get done in 90 days in Annapolis. And I remember my days serving there. And so thank you for what you do. And thank you for getting together here because, of course, we all share the same constituents. And at the end of the day, you know, from their perspective, you have the federal government, you have the state government, you have local governments. They just want us all to get things done. And to the extent we can cooperate and coordinate on these common priorities, all the better. As you know, my regional director for Western Maryland had been Nan Mann. She did a great job. She retired. And Robin Summerfield has stepped in place and obviously hit the ground running, given his prior service for Senator Cardin. So look forward to continuing to work with all of you. And he's a great ambassador to Frederick County. Also working very closely with the new Congresswoman, April McLean Delaney. And I can assure you when it comes to transportation projects and other priorities for Frederick, we are working closely together along with Senator Alsobrooks. So a number of you were on the call, I think, last week when I briefed the Western Maryland delegation. Since then, of course, we've had this terrible collision at Reagan National. And I just want to give you a brief update because there are some Marylanders who we lost on that flight. We're not aware of anybody from Western Maryland, but we had a number of Marylanders down in Southern Maryland and other places. And we are working very hard to get the NTSB to try to quickly and transparently figure out exactly what went wrong. This was clearly an avoidable crash. And so it's important we get to the bottom of it. Separately, many of us, including myself, had been concerned about just how congested Reagan National Airport is. We raised these issues last year when there were some near misses because there had been a push to get more slots, more air traffic into Reagan National last year. And a number of us voted against the bill because we thought that could create public risk. Again, we don't know the cause for this crash, but I have a general concern about the amount of congestion at Reagan. It's the most congested airport in the country. So we also want to drill down on a couple things specific to Frederick. We've been in touch with the folks at the Frederick Health Hospital, given that ransomware attack. This, of course, is not the first ransomware attack we've seen in Maryland. There was a very bad one years ago for Baltimore City, where the federal government got quite involved because of one of the programs that they were using to essentially get into the Baltimore City system. But we are working with the hospital, and in regular communication to make sure that we can provide any assistance that they need. Since last week, and again, I don't remember exactly how many from the Frederick County delegation were on that call, but we were in the middle of this freeze order that came down from the Office of Management and Budget that applied to all federal grants. We were hearing from fire stations, Head Start programs. We were hearing people from people in Frederick County and really across the state who were being negatively impacted. The good news for now is that a number of lawsuits were filed. There was a public outcry from across the country. And so at least for now, it appears that that freeze has stopped, but we're still trying to figure out exactly where we are. But I don't know if you heard from constituents. We heard from lots of organizations that provide community services. Very quickly on the transportation front, as you know, we passed the infrastructure modernization bill a number of years ago. It was a bipartisan bill. Maryland got about $5 to $7 billion over 5 years for roads, bridges, airports. That bill, of course, provides the funds to the state, and the state decides how to allocate those federal funds with their matching state funds. So I was pleased when the governor announced that they were going to restore the $140 million for the US 15 project, which I know is, of course, important to Frederick and to all of us. That bill also included broadband funds, $267 million of which have come to Maryland. I've been up in Frederick County on various briefings over time on broadband, high-speed internet deployment. Obviously, very important to households and small businesses. We look forward to continue to work with you to close any gaps that you in that coverage going forward. I know all of us I have probably been involved in the Piedmont Reliability Project issue. We're all hearing from constituents. Back in October, Congressman Andy Harris and I wrote to PSEG, urging them really to make sure that they had an adequate process for public input and that it wasn't just a show, that they were listening to constituents and making the changes that would be necessary. Of course, we all need reliable electricity, and we're going to need, we need transmission lines, we need generation. Demand for electricity is going up nationally, as you know, because of data centers, AI, all sorts of things. So we are going to have to find a way to increase our electricity production and transmission. We just want to make sure it's done in the smartest and best way with the least harm locally or impact locally. And so that's in front of the PSC now, as you know, and we're monitoring that closely and working with the community. In terms of other issues, we're in the middle of our appropriations process. Our fiscal year began October 1st of last year. We have secured about over $12 million in funds for about 10 projects in Frederick County. We really need to make sure that we move beyond what's called a continuing resolution and get a full year funding bill to make sure that we continue to keep that funding for those important projects. Our continuing resolution, which we're operating under right now, expires March 14th. So March 14th is that day where if we don't collectively get our act together, you have a government shutdown or threats of government shutdown. So we hope to be able to get those funds in fiscal year 24. The last year, we also secured over $12 million funds for important community projects in Frederick County. Finally, colleagues, let me just mention one other thing which relates to federal employees. I mean, there are lots of federal employees who live in Frederick, close to 5,000 federal employees. every places at Fort Detrick, as well as the National Cancer Institute, folks at the National Emergency Training Center in Emmitsburg. I mean, there are lots. You've probably been following this, but there is understandable concern with an effort to develop what's called Schedule F. So Schedule F is a proposal that would convert a lot more merit-based civil service positions into political positions. Right now in the federal government, there are about 4,000 political positions. So when a new president comes in, they of course need to bring in their their team for those top positions. But Schedule F is a proposal to convert about 50 to 60,000 additional positions that are now merit-based into political positions. So this is a concern that I have, many folks across the aisle have, and I just want to flag it for you because it's a very uneasy time for many of federal employees we represent because of the uncertainty around things like Schedule F. So let me close there. Happy to answer any questions you may have, take any comments, and let me close where I started, just saying I appreciate the open line of communication so that we can work together on common priorities.
Well, Senator, I think everybody's had pretty good communication with your office on joint constituent services. So I'm sure your new person will continue to do a good job as your previous person had done in the past. So we do appreciate that side of things. Senator Lewis-Young, do you have a question for the senator?
I do. Nice to see you, Senator. Thank you for joining us. The first part of your comments related to infrastructure. And last year, there was a bill at the federal level to create a national infrastructure bank, HR 4052, with eventually funding of up to $5 trillion, would not rely on taxpayer money. It would not be funded by the federal budget, all privately funded. We all know the only time we've had major infrastructure in this country is with an infrastructure bank. Do you see any possibility of that moving this year?
Well, Delegate Young, it's good to see you. Thanks for your efforts in this area. I'm familiar with the bill to create an infrastructure bank. I've supported initiatives like the infrastructure bank bill. As you say, the idea is to sort of capitalize the bank and then have it sustained, based on public-private partnerships going forward. It does not have a lot of momentum right now, but that doesn't mean it's not something that couldn't be picked up as we go. And, in my experience and probably all of yours, there are ideas that have been out there for a long time and they seem to be going nowhere. And sometimes they get, takeoff. So that is, in my view, a good idea, but we need to get the momentum behind it. I should mention, because obviously Frederick has a great farming community, I should have mentioned, we also work very closely with them on the H-2A visas. These are seasonal worker visas, and Frederick County they've been very important to farmers in Frederick County, so we're continuing to try and do that.
Well, if there's any other parting comments for the senator from the delegation, please speak up. If not, Senator, we appreciate you joining us this morning and being accessible. And we look forward to our continued partnership on constituent services and other things related to Frederick. So
I appreciate that. Thank you, Delegate Pippi. Thank you all very much for what you do.
All right. Thank you, sir. So what we're going to do is we've got kind of a busy schedule here. I don't know if I think the county executive asked that she would be pushed a little further down on the agenda to give her a few minutes to get in here. So let's get into a couple things I'm hoping we can we can knock out, and that's HB 492. This was Delegate Simpson's bill that I think we were just waiting on a letter from the sheriff to support, which everyone should have gotten in their packet. So the letter does show that the sheriff's office is in support of this legislation, which would adjust some of the background checks and the process and all that. So with that, is there a motion on this bill?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of approving a letter of support for this bill, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed for the record? All right. Hearing none. So that's Delegate Simpson will get that letter to the committee, and you should be good to go.
Can we get a cross file on it? Because I don't think it has a cross file in the Senate.
Yeah, if that's the will of
I mean, I think there's several senators that are on the call.
yeah.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, so I guess maybe talk to Senator Lewis Young or Folden or one of them, and I'm sure they can
Yeah, that would be the responsibility of the vice chair.
okay. All right. That shouldn't be an issue. So Delegate, we'll circle up with you after the meeting and we'll coordinate that. All right. The next one is the beer and wine consumption permit revisions. This is like the bad penny that just keeps coming back over and over and over. So we reached out after the last meeting to the liquor board's office. There were a couple of suggestions that were mentioned in the meeting. I think Delegate Kerr mentioned something about, hey, why don't we just have just a total max amount of alcohol and then let the liquor board kind of choose how they break it up. And I think that's where the liquor board landed. So the most recent iteration that we all have in front of us basically just says you have one standard drink is the most alcohol that can be served, and the liquor board can choose how they want to break it all up, whether it's, so many ounces of this, so many ounces of that. It's up to the liquor board to deal with. This is not something that we should be legislating every year till to the end of time. So does anyone have any questions or thoughts on this bill, that idea? Delegate Kerr, is that what you were thinking?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was thinking let's just separate legislation from regulation and leave the regulation up to the regulators. And this was my idea. And so if everyone's ready, I will move to approve.
Okay. Don, real quick, are you on the call with us?
Yes, Delegate Pippi, I am.
Okay, so is the way this is written, is it your understanding that this would give you guys the tools you need to put in there regulations about how you want to break it up, and you can make changes along the way? And the only thing this says is you just can't really serve more than a standard drink. It caps the amount of consumption, but you guys can, break it all down.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
All right, and you guys are good with this?
Yes.
Okay. Delegate Miller, go ahead.
Can you run through it real quick? Just because it's a little hard to understand with where things are taken out and everything like that. So can you just state, like, for the record, the intention about the part of it that was struck, what wasn't struck, all that? I appreciate it.
Yep. So look at all that chicken scratch. This is like an amendment to an amendment to an amendment. So the big thing is, on principle, what we want to accomplish is we're just setting the limit on the total amount of alcohol that can be served, which is a standard drink, essentially. And that is defined in the bill of setting limits of like 12 ounces of beer or 6 ounces of wine or 1.5 ounces of liquor. And so I think the way it was written, Don, do you want to explain it? Is that? Or I can just keep going. All right, she's not chiming in.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Yes, that's exactly it. From what I understood when I met with Andrew last week, is that the delegation wanted a hard top limit, which would be the 12 ounces of beer, the 6 ounces of wine, and 1.5 of the spirits of liquor. And with those capped limits, we can never exceed that, but the board can regulate below that or up to it.
Yeah.
So this works well, and it pushes it back to a regulatory situation with each board. So to me, I know it's hard to follow with all the brackets, but because we do this all the time, the brackets look like they're in the right places. And until they redraft it, unless there's something crazy that comes up out of it, it's written how the intent is supposed to be.
Yeah, so April or Delegate Miller, so if you see what's on the screen now, it says an individual may taste beer, wine, and liquor in a quantity not exceeding a single serving of and then you can see the breakdown of the amounts there. And then below that, it says the board shall regulate the quantity. So what I'm going to do is I just want to make sure that once this final version is cleaned up, that the intent is clear. And the intent of the delegation is that no more than a drink, a full standard drink can be served in any configuration, and that the liquor board can kind of dictate the different amounts, the different ounces. Delegate Boucher, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to chime in. I really appreciate the breakdown of the 12 ounces of beer, 6 of wine, and 1.5 of liquor. And for the public to understand that each one of those has the same amount of alcohol content, and that's why they're broke down that way. And additionally, it takes approximately 1 hour for each one of those drinks to dissipate in the body. So I think this is a very wise decision. I appreciate it being brought forward. Thank you.
Yeah. Delegate Miller, is your hand still up?
Yes. So, and then I just wanted to be clear. So, and then the part about the number of bottles or containers is because I know there are other jurisdictions and I do have it in front of me, but, that is because in some other jurisdictions, like they could actually write a regulation that even says if they don't use all that alcohol, they have to pour it out. So if that's the will of the board, they have some flexibility in how that's done. Is that why that part is in there?
Yeah. I mean, look, ultimately the board is in charge of the, the safety side of enforcement stuff. And so, yes, the liquor board can come up with those regulations that would control what happens when you have, an unfinished beer and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, rather than us try to legislate it every single year, because there's just too many scenarios to like put on paper for us, I think. But
agreed.
Yeah. So, all right. So is everyone good enough with this to move it? It still has to like get, cleaned up and all that. But
So
I'll second. Unless Delegate Kerr already did. I don't know.
All right. All right. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed for the record? All right. Hearing none. Okay. So that's done. Good job there. Is the county executive on the call yet?
I believe she's waiting to be let in. I think she's in the waiting room.
we just got her in here.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, so let's do, and then we got 2 more things to discuss, but let's go ahead and knock out the CTP discussion. We're not going to vote on that today, but if the county executive can just briefly present the updated letter that we do every year. Go ahead, ma'am.
Great. Thank you so much. You guys can hear me okay, right?
Okay.
Yeah, yes, okay. Good morning. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to speak with you today and present Frederick County's 2025 Transportation Priority Letter. I also have Mark Mishler, our Transportation Engineering Supervisor, here to speak to a few of the changes to the state's process this year and also answer any questions you all might have. But first, I did want to just share a few priorities that are outlined in this letter, all of which I know should be familiar to you. Of course, you all know that the US 15 Safety Improvement Project has been a top priority for Frederick County government, the city of Frederick, this delegation, and many members of our community for several decades. It's been a turbulent process as the state has coped with the funding challenges of the Transportation Trust Fund. But due to all of our collective efforts, I'm very pleased that the proposed FY26 to FY30 CTP includes the fund design and construction funding for this project. Importantly, $7.4 million is allocated in this year's budget to continue the planning and design of the project. I want to thank all of you for working in partnership on this as we have advocated for this important project. It was very exciting to see the governor make time to come here to announce the inclusion of this project in his proposed budget. And I know that Frederick County speaking with one bipartisan voice has made a world of difference on this issue. So thank you. I also wanted to just briefly highlight a few other important priorities that are presented in the letter. We continue to advocate for funding to LOTS, which is our locally operated transit service funding. Our priority is to continue to offer accessible, reliable, and safe transit services throughout our county. And as you know, we are really one of the only jurisdictions that still is fare free for our public transit. And I tell my transit folks that I will say that every chance I get. Yes, it is free to ride our buses. We appreciate also the FY25 funding that was there to establish the midday pilot program for MARC, and we're continuing to advocate for expanding that service and the need for weekend services on the MARC train. Additionally, we continue to work in close partnership with the state on multimodal opportunities, including funding for sidewalks, bikeways, and trails. We are specifically requesting support for the Liberty Town sidewalk project as the initial design funding has been exhausted, and that is a critical safety project that we are advocating to move forward. We're also actively working with MDOT's District 7 office to conduct a planning study for safety and operational improvements for the Maryland Route 75 corridor. The county has committed to contribute funding to this design and construction in coordination with MDOT, and it's been a really great experience to be able to work with the District 7 office to move that forward. I will also mention, I had my 5th of my 5 district-based town hall meetings last night. Last night's was in Middletown, and we heard a lot of advocacy for continued investment in our bikeways and trails program as well. So you will see additional priorities and more detailed information in the letter, but I want to be respectful of your limited time and your full agenda. So I'll pass it over to Mark to share some updates about MDOT's prioritization process. And then if you have any questions for either of us, we'd be happy to help. Thank you all.
Thank you, County Executive. Mark Mishler, Frederick County Planning and Permitting Transportation Supervisor. I'll be relatively brief on this. I'm sure a number of you are aware already that the governor's office is proposing to revise how the prioritization process works, the Chapter 30 process works. A couple of those quick highlights. Still going to provide a priority letter by May 1st every year. Instead of an annual funding process, though, they're proposing to fund projects through the prioritization process every 2 years. The off years will be used for feedback and evaluation of those projects. 2025, this year, we're in the middle of the submission process for those Chapter 30 ranking projects that we have in our priority letter here. That process is open from January 15th to February 18th. And if you don't have any of your projects in or all of the information submitted by that date, your project will not be scored or ranked. So we're working through that now. We're submitting the projects we had in last year. We do not have to resubmit 15 because it has been fully funded now at this point. But we're also adding in the Liberty Town Sidewalk project that the county executive mentioned there. And 2025 is known to be a pilot year because there's no funding available. So we're more or less going through a practice round at this point. And I know there's a bill that either is on the floor or moving through. I'm not fully involved in that legislation, but I believe it's HB 0020 that identifies some of these changes with the Chapter 30 process. And I know MACO and MML had a few concerns about that bill. I'm not sure, how familiar with you all are with that. I think their main concerns were having to do with some of the projects being prioritized mainly based on, transit components and or population density. Kind of had some concerns about, more of our Western Maryland projects, things like that, maybe not getting scored as highly. So I'm not sure how that's actually progressed at this point, but I at least wanted to make you aware of that. And I'm here available to answer any questions you may have about that or about any of the projects. So thank you.
Mark, what was that bill number again?
I believe it was HB 0020.
Okay, HB 20.
And, yeah, and Victoria might be able to confirm that one.
Okay. All right. Do any of the members have any questions for the county executive or Mark on the transportation letter, which we will be voting on next Friday? All right. We appreciate county executive you being here and presenting that, and we look forward to moving that and getting that back to you and getting you on your way. All right.
Great. Thank you all so much, and good luck with the rest of your agenda this morning.
All right. Thank you. All right, Mark. Thank you too. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on, one thing here that is on the agenda that's not going to stay is there was a Board of Education student member authorization. That bill's been withdrawn, so we don't need to discuss that. So we can take that off the list. So the last item on our list is the sheriff's salary. And I know that there was a work group. So Senator Fulton, did you want to update the delegation with the work group? Okay.
So the work group met this week. It was 6 of our delegation members, Senator Lewis Young, Senator Corder, and myself, Delegate Miller. Delegate Simpson, and I'm going to miss somebody. Oh, Delegate Valentine. And we had the opportunity to discuss this, and we looked at match counties with similar full service sheriff's offices, meaning they have the responsibility for patrol operations. They have the response as a law enforcement arm. They have the responsibility of the courthouse, the responsibility of the jail, and civil process. Frederick County's current population is 293,000. Every county with a higher population of service to Frederick County does not have a full service sheriff's office. They have their own county police force. And that's an important element of this as well. We went down and we looked at the different types of counties and how they're doing it, whether they were static, where they were matching to the state police lieutenant colonel. 85% of the state's attorney's office is on there. 80% of state's attorney's office is on there. So I believe, and what we had talked about was we can do the 85% of a circuit court judge, or we could do 85% of the state's attorney's salaries. So really, it's going to come down to those two options for the committee or the delegation members to consider. I thought we had a really good discussion about this, and I thought that we came up with a really good strategy moving forward. And I don't know, Senator Lewis Young, if you want to say anything or add to that.
Yeah, I would like to. First of all, when you talk about population, you have got to recognize that Frederick City, which is 1/3 of the county's population, has its own police force with about 140 sworn officers. So you're comparing apples to oranges by just looking at population. There's another option that I'd like to bring up that I mentioned in this work group. And that is a bill that this delegation passed in 2022, Senate Bill 746. It passed in the delegation. All of us unanimously voted that through. It passed in the Senate. Unfortunately, it died in the House 65 to 57. However, several members of the current delegation did vote for it. Silberti, Kerr, Weigel, and myself. So what this bill did, for those of you that weren't part of the delegation then, is that it said we would bring the sheriff's salary up to 140 by 23 and 24. By 25, the sheriff's salary would go to 150. So this is a bill approved by the delegation. So what I did is project that salary forward. I called HR, I called finance to find out what the average increases for all state employees were over that period of time, and I projected it forward. So the next sheriff would be elected in 2026. However, it would be under the fiscal 27 budget. But I projected that forward. So if we were to project forward to 2028, it would be at 166,308. But I projected 2 more years thinking, let's project for the middle of the term, not the beginning of the term. So I projected forward with an annual average increase of 3.5% to 178,153.52. Want to round that up? Fine. The reason I'm proposing this methodology is twofold. One, it's something the delegation and the Senate voted unanimously. A lot of the people that voted it down in the House aren't there anymore. It doesn't tie the salary to a position with a totally different job description. So that's a methodology that I'm recommending and that I could wholeheartedly support.
Thank you for that, Senator. Well, I just want to point out, I thought when we left the meeting the other day, we were all in a very much consensus of the 85th percentile moving forward this year. So,
but you never told us what that number is.
I have them right here. We had worked on that because there was a discussion about what that was. So
no, you didn't give us the number. You said 85 and 80%, but you didn't say 85 or 80% of what?
We said of the state's attorney's salary is what we
What is it?
85% is 189,726 and 80% is 178,566. And that is where it would be for the delegation to decide which measure they wanted to move forward with. That's what we discussed the other day. So,
okay, thank you for the number. We didn't have that the other day.
But I would like it to be noted that we had discussed that and we had all had a consensus that we could move forward with that together, did we not?
We did, as long as we knew it was 80 or 85% of what. I've been waiting for that number.
Yeah, and that's what we've been.
Okay.
That's what this meeting was about, I thought.
And 178 is concurrent with what I just recommended.
Yeah. We have some we have some questions. So I just, interestingly enough, so Senator Fulton's proposal comes between 178 and 189, and Senator Karen Lewis Young's proposal also is at 178, but maybe different ways of getting there. But the numbers are very similar. So hold those thoughts for a moment. Delegate Wyville, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Lewis Young, you mentioned the Frederick City Police Chief. Do you know what his salary is currently?
Yes, his salary is about 195,000. However, the requirements are different. There's an education requirement, as well as several certifications required for the chief of police that are not required for the sheriff.
All right, and he just does patrol, or does he also have a correctional facility?
He doesn't have a correctional facility. No.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And Senator, you had the numbers up there. What was Washington County again? We were 80 or 85% of the state's attorney. I don't remember what it was.
Actually, Washington County was 90% of the state's attorney.
90% of the state's attorney. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Delegate Fair, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Lewis Young, I appreciate your bringing this forward. And we as you mentioned, we have a number of municipalities that have police forces. I just want to make sure I underscore that point, not just Frederick City. We also have a Brunswick police force. We have a Thurmont police force. There's multiple municipalities that have local police forces as well. I'm fine with this discussion going out of the way. I was just curious, would you consider at your 178 number, would you consider attaching a COLA to that bill? So again, I think that the general consensus or concern that keeps getting expressed at these meetings is that we have to come back and address this over and over and over again. If we settled on a number that was commensurate with where we were at in 2022, which is what I've been advocating for, would you consider putting a COLA on that as well, so that they have a natural system for increasing the sheriff's salary pay?
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with that. I just need to make sure we can do that because my understanding is we could only adjust the Frederick sheriff's salary once every 4 years. But if we can build a COLA in, that would be perfect. Then I don't have to forecast forward.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to point out a couple things real quick. I like the idea of the COLA being attached, but I want to point out, the FPD was a point. The chief of the FPD making 195. The sheriff has over 300 employees. The Frederick police chief has about 150. The sheriff's office currently has gone 18 years without any pay increase. 18 years. And the next closest county size is Harford County, which is smaller than Frederick County. And they have not a police agency as large as Frederick, but they have multiple police agencies in that county. That sheriff makes $222,000. Now, obviously, we're not advocating for that because we see the dynamics and difference. But when the Frederick police chief is making $195,000 and he serves at the will of one, the mayor, the sheriff is elected by all the county citizens. So he answers to a much broader base than the Frederick police chief. So I hear what you're saying about the education. I hear what you're saying about the other thing. At the end of the day, he's elected by the citizens. The Frederick police chief is not. His can be a political hire, just like the sheriff. So I would like to make sure that we keep all those things in the proper lens. And I see that Delegate Miller has her hand up.
Yeah, I completely agree with Senator Folden. Senator Folden, can you go over the numbers then of what it would be again with the 80, 85% and 90%? And I would certainly think that our sheriff's salary, given all the facts laid out, should be at least commiserate with the chief of the Frederick Police Department. So can you go over those numbers again with me one more time?
Sure. So of the state's attorney salary, 80% of the state's attorney salary for Frederick County would be $178,566. 85% of the state's attorney salary would be $189,726, and 90% of the state's attorney salary would be $200,887.
So that it seems like the 85% would be the most commiserate, if we're talking with, about, comparisons, in salary. And so it seems like, and then if tying it to the state's attorney, wouldn't we also tie it to any raises and COLAs that the state's attorney's office gets, or could we structure it like that?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that. It would just be, I think it would probably be, I don't think it can be annually, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I believe because the electeds, it would have to be at the beginning of each 4-year term adjusted, but it could be adjusted over whatever COLAs were given over that preceding 4-year period. But I would have to check to confirm that.
Okay, yeah, however that could be written in, whichever way, I think would be, commiserate, would that be okay, Delegate Fair, if it's written in that way, or would you want to see it?
I think that yeah, whatever attorneys tell us is the logical way that we have to do it, I think is a great idea. I think there is I'll just mention, I believe that there is very broad consensus around this 178 number with a COLA attached to it, amongst the entire delegation. It appears to be a very broad consensus.
So let me hear from Senator Quarterman and then Delegate Kerr. Senator Quarterman, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm good right now.
Go ahead.
I'm all right. No questions at the time.
Okay. And then Delegate Kerr, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A point, and then I'd like to make, and then I have a question someone may have the answer to. Senator Folden mentioned that the chief of police serves with the mayor. He's hired by the mayor. He's hired through an HR process, whereas the sheriff is an elected official. So the mayor has the authority to fire the chief of police. The county executive does not have the authority to fire the sheriff. No one has the authority to fire the sheriff. So I don't think that is a point of comparison that we should give a whole lot of weight to. The other thing is, we mentioned that every county with a higher population than Frederick has a countywide police force. What is the population of the county that's the next highest to Frederick?
The next highest county is Howard.
And the difference in population between Howard and Frederick?
It's about 40,000.
Yeah, I'm thinking that Frederick's not far from moving in the other direction and going with a county police force. So those are just 2 points I wanted to make.
That very well may be the case, but that's not where we are today.
Yeah, I understand, but those are 2 points that are factors weighing in my decision to support or not. Thank you.
Delegate Boucher, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I really appreciate all the work the committee has put this together. There's a lot of great points being made. The only thing I want this delegation to take in consideration right now is the fact that we are under a severe fiscal crisis, not only as a state and a county, but also our constituents are being crushed with inflation, wondering how they're going to pay their utility bills. This raise in question would not go into effect until the next term. So in reality, we still have one more term to wait. And I think it'd be very sensitive to the needs of our constituents to hold on to this because it puts out an absolutely horrendous image to the populace of us wanting to create such a large raise to a publicly elected official. Not that I don't agree with the sheriff's office needing a raise, but this is something we should hold off on in consideration that. Plus, also, things change over the next 2 years. I'm reading a book on Dwight Eisenhower right now. One of the greatest things about his leadership was he firmly believed that an ultimate decision of any great magnitude should be held as far out as possible until that final decision needs to be made. And we are not there yet. And the reason is there's so many variables that can take place. The economy, more inflation, less inflation. The reality is, if we lock this raise down, we could potentially see more inflation next year, and this raise will not be the proper raise to put in place. So I just want everyone to take that in consideration. There's no hurry to do this, and it might be extremely prudent for us as elected officials to hold this off until next year. And I do support the sheriff getting a raise. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator.
Delegate Pepe,
go
hold
ahead.
on a second, real
Oh.
quick. I want to respond to that.
Go ahead.
Delegate Boucher, did you're familiar that your sheriff that you represent the majority of, which is Carroll County, just got his adjusted as well, correct?
I'm familiar with the debate and everything went down. Yes, you're correct. Thank you.
Did you support that measure?
I supported the initial legislation I was submitted, but then it was amended. I had fought against the race.
Okay, because I would like it to be noted that the Carroll County Sheriff, Carroll County represents 176,000 people, and the Carroll County Sheriff will be moved to 191 in 2026 and 212 in 2027. Thank you.
Senator Corbin, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to just back up just a second here. I mean, we all met the other day. I think we all agreed, regardless of the small group or this larger group here, everyone's agreeing that the sheriff needs a salary increase. Everyone agrees it's been much too long. Everyone agrees that we want to keep dealing with this. Everyone agrees the salary band is probably in that 178 to 190,000, whatever it may be. So it's very simple. There's 6 other counties that tie to the state's attorney. You make it 85%. It's on 190. You don't have to worry about COLAs. State's attorney's increases take care of it. It's done. I make a motion. You move forward to 85%. And we move forward with it there. So make a motion to move forward with the bill at 85% of the state's attorney's salary.
I'll second. Delegate Miller.
All right, so we're in discussion. Let's get the last words here. Delegate Simpson, we're in the discussion phase. Go ahead.
Yes, I do understand, and I do appreciate the not just the work group, the very thoughtful work group that we got together now, but I do appreciate, I believe, I guess this has been a discussion for decades, it sounds like, or at least a decade. I think given the current climate, the only reason that I am going to be voting against this is I do think that we should go in, and I said this the last time, and I said this during the work group, so I'm being consistent. There are 6 counties that remand this back to the county, which is actually doing the budget. I think that for the General Assembly, we are not actually saying that it doesn't put a increase in the books. It says that we are, like other counties, going to allow the county to make that decision. And I think we have a greater probability of getting the increase to the sheriff's salary if we do like those 6 other counties and write legislation that literally says that the county determines what the sheriff's salary would be, and then we wouldn't be revisiting this over and over again. I understand we have a motion, and that's just explaining what my vote will be. I know that that is not what's being proposed. I'm saying what I do think has a better chance of passing.
Thank you for that, Delegate Simpson. I just wanted to point out to the entire body that Delegate Simpson was a part of this work group the other day and was agreeable to moving forward in the fashion that we've just discussed, and actually with the motion that was just discussed, so we could move forward as a unified body. Now what we have, once again, is a fractured body with some change in their word from what we just had the other day. So we were going to move forward with this at an 80 or 85%, whichever the group decided, and then see how the measure moved forward. If it failed this year, then we would revisit it in a similar fashion, because the reason we didn't want to leave it in the hands of the county council is it becomes a political motivated option on their behalf, because that's what we're trying to take out of it, is any of the politics, put it as commensurate with the responsibility that they have so that we don't have to revisit it again. And that motion would put it back in the hands of a political motivated council. Thank you.
All right, so there's a couple more hands that have popped. I just, Senator Fulton, can we clarify, is the proposal, I guess Senator Quarterman, is the proposal 85% of a circuit court judge?
No, it was 85% of the state's attorney salary, I believe. It made it that 189,000. I mean,
189,726.
Yeah, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the math on that? 85% of, because the state's attorney's salary is 193, isn't it?
No, the state's attorney salary is 223.
Okay. And that's
85%
for
of that.
next fiscal year, is that what it is?
It's for this past or for what we're in now.
Okay.
And the current 85% of that is 189,726.
Okay. I just want to make sure we got the numbers.
Yep. Of course.
Okay. All right. So we're doing another lap here. So Senator Karen Lewis Young, go ahead.
Thanks. I just want to be clear that when we came out of that work group the other day, we had not agreed on either 80 or 85. We said one of the two. I can support 80 for a variety of reasons. It corresponds directly with something that passed before or came close in the House. And that's our ultimate goal, to get something passed. And also the point that Delegate Boucher brought up, which is if we have an extreme jump, the perception could be very negative. But I also want to address something that who just said, Senator Folden. There's no reason why the county's projection would be considered political any more than what comes out of this delegation. So let's be clear about that.
Thank you for that, Senator. And the politically motivated was, as you're trying to, I guess, allude to, is that we all agreed the other day, and now we have people changing that. So
no, I question that we
didn't
agree on a number.
And we said that we would make that agreement today with the body.
We agreed on the methodology.
Correct. There you go. Thank you.
Not a number.
Thank you.
Delegate Simpson, go ahead.
Just to clarify quickly, we got called to floor, so I believe that I am being consistent with what I had said during committee is what I had recommended, and was not there at the conclusion of the meeting, actually.
Correct.
Delegate Miller, go ahead.
Okay. So a couple things that I've said, in my committee, we deal with taxes, and we have had the county executive come forward on multiple bills to try to have more tools in the toolbox to raise taxes, property taxes, have different methods for the county executive to use. A lot of what is being pushed back, including 93 million, is being pushed back due to the blueprint, of which there have been significant raises to teachers, staff, a whole host of other incentives that put percentages of salary increases into the 5 and 10%, which is having a very significant impact on the pension fund, which is why the 93 million is being pushed back to the locals. So, we are going to actually even be with the blueprint projections. We are going to be in a worse situation next year. So I don't think pushing this off, again, it is over 10 years overdue. So I don't think pushing this off to next year from a budget standpoint would be, and we wouldn't be in any different situation. And I think a lot of people in the county support with the significant job that the sheriff has in keeping all of us safe, certainly in having that salary be commensurate with our surrounding jurisdictions. I would say they would be in favor of. The other thing with putting it back to the county executive and the county council, as I did bring up in the meeting with my work on the Charter Review Commission, I would want to see if that would have to go through, and I was talking to Council Member Keegan Ayer about if it would have to go through the salary review process that the county executive and the county council members, if it would be part of that, and then if that would require a charter amendment, which could push this even further down the road. So that's why I'm in favor of going ahead and making the change now.
All right, Delegate Fair, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, you know, I just want to rest assured everybody out there, and Delegate Miller as well, that the blueprint is fully funded already by our budget this fiscal year as well as the following fiscal year. So the blueprint will not play a role in this conversation.
The
I did
92
want to
million
comment.
is getting pushed back this year.
I did want to comment additional to that point, that we do on this committee, this is the first time hearing of the numbers associated with what this salary increase would be. What is perplexing for me is that both the proposal that Senator Lewis Young has brought forward and the proposal that Senator Folden has brought forward have equal consensus around a number. It's almost identical. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of just randomly tying salaries to a percentage of some other employee's number. I just find that to be not logical to me. But I mean, that's my own personal feeling, and I'm not going to, you know, certainly not going to die on that hill. But I will say that Senator Lewis Young took the time to calculate what the sheriff's salary would have been if we would have adjusted for proper cost of living increases each year from a bipartisanly supported bill in 2022 that Republicans and Democrats, 8 Republicans and Democrats came together and co-sponsored a bill to bring forward to the floor. And that number just happens to also fall on the identical number that Senator Folden came up with. That sounds to me like a consensus number to me, where everybody on this call agrees that that number is a logical number to fall on. The only request that I had was, to Senator Folden's point, to Chair Pepe's point, let's not do this over and over and over again. Let's find that number, sit with that number, and attach a COLA to it, and then we don't have to address this year in and year out. I think that that is a reasonable compromise for everybody on this call. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so just to clarify a couple things. So the motion in the second starts off at 189,726. So that is slightly higher than I think the latest number that Senator Karen Lewis Young had presented. I think at Senator Folden's analysis, at 80% of the state's attorney's current salary was the 178 and change, but at 85%, it's the 189 and change. And so there's a little difference there in the latest number with Senator Karen Lewis Young and what's been motioned and seconded. Not a huge difference in numbers there, but there is a motion in a second, right? So procedurally, we do have to, unless that's withdrawn, we have to take a vote. So
I have a compromise. Let's go halfway in between the 80 and the 85.
So do 82.5% of the.
Yeah, it's roughly 183.5 if you split the difference.
Yeah, and I'm amenable to that. I think that that's, if we can come together I think it's just important that all of us come together and look at this in the seriousness that it is and value the position that is there, regardless of who's there, that it's an important position to our community. And I think that attaching it to the state's attorneys, because the state's attorneys scale already, to Delegate Fair's point, has a built-in COLA to his salary. When the county gets a COLA, he gets one. So it's already in there. So it would be commensurate with what other county employees got. So, I mean, if Senator Quarterman would like to reframe it to 82.5%, I think that that's a good compromise.
just make it 83 for God's sake.
I'm fine with that. You know, I'll amend the motion to whatever it is, 82.5%, 83%, whatever is the least ridiculous looking thing on a piece of paper. Because I'm just gonna be like, what is this 82.5%? But whatever's gonna make everybody happy, that's fine.
All right.
Not about what makes everybody happy. It's we've got to sell it to the people that wouldn't vote for it 2 years ago. And if we can say, hey, look, we used a very similar methodology to what came within 5 votes 4 years ago, it helps us sell it to the naysayers.
And I think if we're all unified in this as a delegation, it is a much better selling point than to be fractured along party lines. And if 82.5% makes that happen, let's make that the motion. And I'll second Senator Quarterman's at that, and we can move forward.
Wait, I already had seconded it, but
Oh,
I just
did you?
wanted to make
Okay,
sure.
thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I just wanted to make sure that, again, some of this is in statute with the state's attorney, so I just want to make sure that the current state's attorney's salary will have already had all of those in it. So I just want to double, confirm the numbers, but I'm fine with the 83% as long as the numbers check out the way we want.
Yeah,
And I'll confirm those numbers. We can bring this back up, Chairman, next Friday. I'll just confirm the numbers and that he's attached to what COLA, and then we'll have a final bill unless everybody is ready to move it at the 82.5% upon
Press the motion at 82.5%. We got to get this thing filed. The deadline's on Monday. I mean, you're not going to get Senate filed.
Okay.
Don't do that. So press it at 82.5.
And I'll verify the COLAs and I'll report back to everybody. But if everybody's amenable to that, that's where we're at, and we'll just be ready to vote on the bill, I guess.
Yeah, the only comment I want to make is there's in the statute right now, it says 188,777. I realize that the numbers is higher because it goes up, but I don't want to put ourselves in a box here that we sign up for something that's lower. So
yeah, we would have to, in statute, it is that, but he's been allowed to gain COLAs consistent with the county. That's why it's higher over the past 8 years or whatever, 10 years.
All right. So just the motion does include the higher amount. So we're all saying that we want it. It's not going to be 188,777 or 83% of that. It's going to be the higher
with
number.
His salary at the county level, inclusive of COLAs.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. We're going to go ahead and go through this, and then we can. Are we good to do that?
Yeah, I think you got a motion and you got a second. So
all right. So Senator Fulton, go ahead. This is a roll call vote.
Oh, are you doing a roll call right now? You're selling?
Yeah. Do you want to wait or do you want to do it?
No, that's fine. Aye.
Okay. Delegate Boucher.
Nay.
Delegate Siliberti.
Yes.
Senator Quarterman.
Yes.
Delegate Fair.
Yes.
Delegate Kerr.
Yes.
Senator Karen Lewis Young.
Yes.
Delegate Miller.
Yes.
Senator Reedy. Absent. Delegate Rose.
Yes.
Delegate Simpson.
Nay.
Delegate Tomlinson.
Yes.
Delegate Valentine.
Yes.
Delegate Wyval.
Aye.
All right, and I vote yes. All right, so that passes. And we'll report back to the committee, to the delegation with the confirmation of numbers, but we got to, because the deadline's coming up, we got to get it moving. All right, well, that's it. That's all the business we had for today. Any parting comments from the delegation? Delegate Wyval, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to address the issue that was on the agenda but removed, just for future reference, if someone has a bill that directly affects a county and specifically names that county, we would appreciate the courtesy to be notified in advance of that, because we were all kind of caught off guard that Washington County was mentioned in a, totally changing our Board of Ed and the structure in which our student member was selected. We're perfectly happy with that process currently, and we had no intention of changing it, and it would have saved us all a lot of problems or issues in time if we just would have been notified about it in advance, and we could have expressed our opinion that we had no interest in being included in such a bill.
Okay, since you brought it up, I would like to address it. That bill was dropped inadvertently. One of the members of my staff took a whole stack of bills over and dropped it. It was never intended to be dropped. We were still working on it. We worked on it for months and sought the counsel of an individual in leadership with an expertise in this area. The reason it was structured that way is year after year for 11 years, students have come to us and said, we want at least some limited voting rights. We are surrounded by counties that have something greater than us. And so we structured it around counties that were our neighbors. Now, if you read the bill, we did not change Washington County in the bill at all. The only thing that the
Oh,
bill,
yes, you did. I totally disagree with that.
okay,
You
could I
picked Washington
finish my
County out. We
sentence?
currently select our member by policy. You were putting it into statute, how that
No, no,
student.
no. Let me tell you what we put into statute. You don't have it in statute right now.
Correct, and
You
we want to keep it that way.
No, but all we were putting in statute was that you have a student board of member. That was it. The end. Read the bill.
Right now, I did read the
Hey,
bill. You
hey,
read
guys,
the bill. Maybe
this
you
is-
didn't read your own bill. You created that student member by
All right.
statute where it's currently created by policy in Washington County.
Okay.
And then you also changed the manner in which they were compensated, which we're totally fine with.
No,
Just
we didn't
my
change
comment
that.
is in the future, if you have a bill that's specific to another county that's not a statewide bill, give us the common courtesy to let us know you're going to file
And
that
if
bill.
you would let
If
me
you want to file a
finish,
Frederick County bill and change it, you're more
if
than welcome
I
to do
was
that.
going
But
to
leave Washington
move
County out
forward
of it.
with
That's
the
all I'm
bill,
asking you.
if I was going to move forward with the bill was not in final form. We decided not to move it. That's why the House cross file was never dropped. So if we had moved forward, we would have given you the courtesy of telling you about it, but we didn't move forward with it. And we were told by leadership it did not need to be a delegation bill.
So
But
give
we
us the
would have-
courtesy when you're
we-
working on that bill, and we can save you a lot of work
We
and
hadn't
telling you we're
gotten
not
to that
interested in
point
it in the
yet.
front.
We,
All right.
I,
You
All right,
consulted
hold
a
on, guys,
policymaker,
please.
right?
Hey, let's, because
Yeah. we
so
hadn't gotten to that
So
point.
consult the Washington
message-
County.
the
not your
message was relayed.
policymaker.
The message was relayed. Thank you, Delegate and Senator. All right, so that's the end of our work here. We can take that conversation offline. I hope everyone has a safe weekend. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. All right, be safe. We'll see everybody next week.